No, that should be recording. All right, so who's got, I'll make it as interactive as possible though, but who's got a bit of an idea on how to start a counseling practice and what to do if you want to start a counseling practice? Just give me, throw some things at me and I'll either throw them back at you or we'll keep talking about them. Anyone?
I don't really have a clue, but it's something I want to learn about.
Cool. I'll give it a shot. You know, what would you reckon? Because it's okay. Let me sketch the playing field, and then we'll probably be a bit easier to talk about it. So there's two ways of going about it, and I'll talk a bit about the stats. And the stats are on this website very shortly. There's actually three ways you can go about it, or four, as they come up in my mind. What I did is start off in my own business, and that's a good way to go if that's what you wish to do. In many ways, it's the best ways to go in terms of personal freedom if you want, because obviously as a business owner, you're not accountable to anyone but yourself, and no one tells you what to do but yourself. So there's freedom in that one. The earnings can be better, and I'll have to say can, not always, but if you do well, you can charge a fairly solid hourly rate, anywhere between, well, depending on your experience and stuff, anywhere between maybe I'll give a broad range, but between $60 and $150 a session. It just depends on your specialty and where you're at. So there's a fair bit of money in that one. If you do $150 clients per week, then that's pretty much only 10 hours of contact time, and you're pocketing $1,500. So that sounds pretty good. The downside is obviously that you are the business. Unless you step into something where you can work together with people. So you are the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the operating officer, the financial officer, the executive officer, the bookkeeper, the accountant, the salesperson, and the actual counselor. So that's a tricky bit. When I started off, I did it that way because I had a bit of a background in business. On the other hand, it's a tricky one if that is your only source of income. And we'll discuss that a little bit as well. So that's one. The other one is obviously try and find a job. Now that has as advantages, obviously, that you'll be probably get paid a decent wage, consistently, hopefully anyway. You could do that as a contractor, or you can do it as an employee. So the benefits are obviously sick days and all that sort of stuff, public days off. On the other hand, the downside to that one, and we'll talk about as well, is that there are many counselors who are looking for jobs, and there are many counselors with lots of experience that are looking for jobs, and there are many counselors with more than a diploma with lots of experience that are looking for jobs. Now, that's not the end of the world, but that's definitely something you want to take into account. And on top of that, obviously, there are lots of psychologists that are looking for counseling jobs, and they might sometimes pick the food from our table where we want it. But again, that's another part of the playing field. A third one could be working with third parties as a contractor, for instance. So you can contract out. Now, that's what I've done and still do, actually, for a long time. I actually still do, so I've done it for a long time. Find people with clients that are willing to palm their clients off to you. And that could be anything from employment consultants or, like job search businesses who don't want to work with people other than just getting them a job, and they might need counseling. So you could do that. It could also be, for instance, EAP counseling, employee assistance counseling, where people work for a company who actually gives them free counseling, a couple of sessions a year, and they generally contract that out to employee assistance providers. So that could be a job. And then there's all sorts of other stuff where you can do 1 or 2 day things, where you can just work. So that's contracting. And then the fourth one, and we'll discuss that as well, is volunteering. You can start off from that. Volunteering is always a really good way of actually getting your practice hours up. Obviously, it doesn't pay much or anything at all, but it's a great way to get your hours up, to get experience up. So those are sort of the 4 ways that I think the most easy inroads into the market. Now we'll have a bit of a look, and I'll keep talking for a couple of seconds, and then I'll actually get you in there. Let's see if I can actually mute all of you, so I've got the only sound. Or actually, could you? No, hang on. I should be able to do it. let's see. Where's my screen? Manage participants. Can I mute all of you? Mute all. Okay, here you go. You can't talk. If you want something, you have to send me a little chat message. All right. So now you should be all muted. Just have a look at this one, guys. Just the counselor's role. This is part of the Job Outlook website of the government, and then they put a lot of good stuff on there. And I'll throw it open for discussion very shortly. But I just want to go through this one. Now, as you can see, counsellors normally, if they are on pay, they can actually get a fairly decent wage, and that's something I've discussed with many people. Maybe not with all of you yet, because you haven't been my students for that long. But the future growth in counselling is massive, like absolutely massive. Now, that's a good thing for us. It's not such a good thing in general, because it means that there is a lot of people with a lot of trouble walking around. So they all need help. Now, when we look at this employment sector like counselling, the future growth very strong, and here's something you go like, oh, okay, here we go. You need bachelor or higher. Now, I'll talk about that very shortly. But this is a really cool website. So it's joboutlook.gov.au. Something definitely for you guys to look at. I'm going to go through it real quick because I don't want to spend too much time on it. It's all there for you. I just want to look at, the unemployment rate is below average. So definitely good chances of finding some employment in there. I'm definitely underrepresented, 20% males versus pretty much 80% female. So I'm special, I know that. And generally, you'll find that there is more and more people needed in more and more areas of life. And that's a good thing. Now, the prospects you'll find here, if you look at that one, and I hope you can still see that one, 2020, they'll need 25.5, roughly, 25,500 counsellors. So to grow that one from, say, 2015 to another, $5,000 on top, that offers us pretty good, chances of finding some work in there, especially by 2020. You guys should have at least 2.5, 3 years experience under your belt, which starts to count at that stage. So that's a cool one. Let me have a look, see if there's anything else. No, I don't want to see. I'll have a look at this. I'll address this right now. Now, it says here that a bachelor degree or higher is usually required. Look, it helps, obviously, but it's not necessary. Especially when you start to look at, for instance, the NDIS, the National Disability Insurance Scheme, and especially when you start to look at, for instance, rural Australia, and then as more specific telehealth services, so doing stuff over the phone, there is lots of work. I've been told by someone who is actually working for an NDIS provider, there is lots of work, and they require diploma level minimum. But you would have to go for that sort of work as a contractor, so you would have an ABN, and work from that point of view. Now, bachelor degree, does that help? Well, I'll tell you really honestly how I went. I was a life coach, so I did my life coaching course, nothing accredited, nothing Australian accredited, but I had done a life coaching course, and I started doing employee assistance, or what do they call it? Employee skills training for an employment service provider, in this case, Campbell Page, and maybe some of you have heard of that one. It's pretty much the same as Mission and as Max and as whatever you got, Serena Russo and all those ones. Now, I was doing my employee assistance training or skills training, and at some stage, one of the managers asked me, "It's like, are you a counsellor?" And I said to her, "It's like, well, no, I'm not a counsellor, but I'm a life coach." She said, "Bugger, that's not enough." I said, "Well, how so?" And she said, "Well, I need someone to actually, do counselling for us, and I'd love you to do that stuff, but you need to have, an official qualification in counselling," and I didn't have that. And that's how I started off. I said, "Well, give me about 12 to 15 months. I'll smash a counselling diploma out, and I'll get back to you." And under a while, I kept doing my employee skills training for them as a contractor, and I did my diploma in about 15 months, just under 15 months, I think. Smashed it out. Decided to do a unit and a half a month and keep that up, and I did. So 15 months later, I had my counselling diploma in my pocket. And from that point forward, she started shoving counselling sessions my way because they had funding for long-term unemployed and barrier-affected unemployed and all that sort of stuff under the, well, in that case, in Queensland, the Skilling Queensland funding rules. And I started to see anywhere between 10 and 20, actually, 10 and 20 counselling clients per week for them across a couple of locations on the Sunshine Coast mainly. And I've did that for close to 3 years consistently. And the good thing is, and it's like, I'm not bragging, but just give you an idea, I didn't have a clue, what was possible in terms of counselling, but I got this inroads, and the funding available for sessions was $130 a session, and that was what I could charge invoicing, and I did about anywhere between 15 and 20 a week. So go figure out, that's pretty good on top of whatever else I was doing with my own private practice. Now, the funding got cut in 2015, at least for Campbell Page. So I lost that work. But hey, look, now I'm here doing this for 2 years, and now I'm doing employee assistance counselling stuff as well. So there's still a fair amount of work. Now, to put that in perspective, I won't mention any names, but I had a counselling student who recently graduated in the last graduation round. And she's got work as a diploma-trained counsellor as well, in a GP surgery, where she does have to hire a room, so she hires a room I think it costs her anywhere between $40 and $60 a day, to hire that room. So that's money for the practice. But then the GPs actually, commit to putting people forward to her who do not want to be on a mental health plan and therefore have probably have a diagnosis against them, because that's what happens when you go on a mental health plan. You actually get diagnosed, and that could lead to all sorts of troubles with insurance and all that sort of stuff. So people that don't want to do that, they can still see a mental health worker, in this case the counsellor in that surgery, at a reasonable rate. So I think she charges about $60 a session. And that's her first years, straight out of college, diploma trained, and she sees about 3 or 4 people a day, about something like that. So she pays $60, makes $240, so it's $180 a day in your little counselling practice, and you're kicking off. That's really as simple as it is. And I've heard of stories of people getting employment with diplomas. So there's definitely work out there. And I really, do a good old CBT session on yourself. Don't get hung up on the idea, on the absolute limited belief that there is no work out there for diploma-trained counsellors. I will be blunt and honest. Is there more work if you're higher trained? Obviously, that there will be. More doors will open up. So that's why I'm doing my masters. So that there's always stuff out there. But it's definitely doable to get good jobs and good work as a contractor, as an employee with a diploma. Does that make sense? Anyone got a comment on that one, or wants to completely kick me off air because I'm talking stupid stuff? I hope not. Any ideas on that?
No, not really. I think that's good.
The thing that I've had most of my discussions with in classroom, because I'm technically still a classroom tutor, and in the classroom here when it was still busy, was all the naysayers that said that it wasn't possible to get work with a diploma, and I just whacked them around the ears with my own experience. And that's not necessarily fair, because, well, why would I? But the stats just deny it as well. Now, is it harder? Well, let's be realistic. Sure, maybe with a university degree, there's a bit more chance. But if you can build up your experience with your diploma by doing volunteering or doing some perhaps slightly lower paid jobs, or being an assistant to someone, like mental health support worker, for instance, not necessarily the actual worker, but an assistant to a mental health support worker, or something in that range, within no time flat, you build up your experience. And a diploma with, say, 3 or 4 years experience is more valuable than a bachelor straight off out of uni. It just is. And it's simple as that. So if we look at any questions on that, otherwise I'll just keep rambling. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So in the event that you want to start off your own business, give me an idea on what you think you have to do in order to get started. I just want to get some rough ideas. What do you have to do so I can actually drink my soup? Come on, give me something.
I think the business side of it, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously need like a room set up. So to me, setting up the room is really easy.
Yep, that's definitely one.
That's about as far as my brain's gone.
Okay, that's cool. That's a good start. Look, honestly, I think, and I'm not necessarily a business coach or anything, but what I think is really important, first of all, is get your ABN. That's easy. Yeah, that's an easy one. Just get an ABN, register for an ABN, register a business name, which can usually is your own name usually, or come up with whatever you want, and call yourself a counsellor. Now that'll cost you a couple of $100 every couple of years. I think it's about $170 for a 3 to 5 year registration of a business name, but I could be wrong there. I might have to check that up at ASIC website. So get an ABN, because then you're in business. That's your business if you want to start it off as a business. The second thing you want to. Oh, yep. Go ahead. What's that?
How do you go about paying tax?
Well, if you play it well, you don't pay any tax at all, Lindy.
Yeah, that I know. In my mind, it's like that'd be good.
Mm-hmm. Look, honestly, the way I've done it for years, I've registered as a sole trader. So I'm the business. I haven't set up a PTY Ltd or a partnership or something, so I just operate under my own name, and that's a business. So I run a business, and whatever I make is income. So whatever I make just goes under my income tax. It's as simple as that. So I obviously have to keep track of what I earn or what I make through my invoicing, and I've got a little online bookkeeping system for that. QuickBooks you can use, or MyOb or whatever. That's all practical stuff when you get to the operational side of things. There's plenty of that. I use a really simple one online, and I can't even think of the name now. Let me have a look that up. I use it. Bill Q. It's called Bill Q, not Q as in long queue, but Q as in queuing someone. So CUE, Bill Q. I pay $11 a month for that, and that allows me to do my cloud accounting in a sense. So I make invoices and create receipts and lodge expenses and all that sort of stuff. And at the end of the year, I just flick a printout or a summary to my accountant, and whatever I've made in my counselling practice just goes on top of my income from other things, and it just gets taken into the big bulk. Now that means obviously that what you charge is taxable income. So if you played smart, you would set aside roughly 20% of every dollar you make in order to pay your taxes, and 20% is roughly right. I think you won't pay much more anyway, not in the beginning. So set aside about 20 to 25%. So if you, on a month, say in a month you've charged people, I don't know, say in a month you've charged them $2,000 over a month's worth of invoicing, then you would set 20% of that one aside. So $400 goes into maybe a separate savings account, which I've done. I've just set up a separate savings account, called it my tax account, and it's just the tax reserve. And under while it creates interest for me, so it actually creates me some extra income, which is good. And it's now you can work it for that one. And at the end of the year, you find out whether you actually got tax payable or tax coming back through other stuff. But at least you would have that money sitting there. So if you get a tax bill, no biggie, because you just pay it from your little savings account. And it's easy as that. So that's how you would do that. Now, okay. So ABN, get your tax stuff in order, get an accountant, whatever. The second thing I would do is get your insurance sorted. Hey, liability indemnity insurance must have. Like, I can't emphasize that strongly enough. Not that you'll probably ever run into trouble, but it's an absolute must have. So public liability and public indemnity insurance, you need to have that one. The ACA, if you become a member of the ACA, which I strongly suggest you do, has good brokers, or has one good broker actually, with a fairly affordable personal indemnity and liability insurance, and I think it's about $160 a year, and you're covered for, I don't know, up to $10 million or something, like some stupid amount. So that's all sorted. Luckily we're in an industry where we don't run that much risk. It's like, if a person's not happy with you, I'm not going to sue you, but it could happen. It could happen. Luckily, we don't diagnose and we don't treat, so we don't run into the same problems that, for instance, psychiatrists and psychologists can run into. If there's a faulty diagnosis and faulty treatment, then shit might absolutely hit the fan. With us, that's not that hard. As long as we don't claim to be treating people and claim to be diagnosing people, that's when it goes wrong. It could go wrong. So get your insurance sorted, and then the simple stuff, get a business card, get a website, get stuff out there. Just start. Do a little Facebook business page. Do a LinkedIn profile that rocks. Get your social media up. Do a little Instagram account from all your beautiful counseling sessions out on the beach or whatever it is. Do something that actually starts to get your profile up. So definitely a Facebook business page I would do. Absolutely a LinkedIn profile. Absolutely a simple but solid website with lots of contact details and a contact form on there so people can actually contact you. And that could be it for a bit. At least people can find you now. I've spent a lot of money and time on websites, and it's worth it. But maybe in the beginning you can back off on that one a little bit and have a simple one that at least has your personal details on there so people can find you. Because that's really important. They got to find you. Yeah.
Vistaprint's a good place to go.
What's that, Debbie?
There's a place online you can go to. Vistaprint, you can do everything from banners to cards to websites.
Absolutely. Vistaprint Vistaprint's awesome. I've used a lot of Vistaprint over the years to print brochures, print business cards and all that sort of stuff. And they're quite affordable. So they're cool. So get all that stuff sorted and get your letterhead, do something nice. The only thing though, and I've been, was caught up by that trap, is thinking that now that I've got my insurance and I've got my ABN and I've got my business card and I've got my letterhead and I've got everything sorted, now the clients are going to come flocking in, because I'm ready. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So the next step, if you set up your own business, would be, and people don't like it, but it's a necessity, networking. Get out there. You want to get out there. Good ways to go, for instance, if you're serious about building a business, is liaising yourself with community groups that have to do something with mental health. So have a chat with local community organizations, register your name or express an interest to come along to do chats, do intro talks, whatever, talk about specific topics, but also just, go and visit a Rotary club, go visit a Lions club and talk about mental health in general, or a specific topic or a current affair topic about mental health, suicide and Are You OK Day and all that sort of stuff. They're great topics to do some chats about. What I did for a number of years was become part of a breakfast network group, where you pay for your brekkie, obviously, and the people there are all in business, and they generally allow one person of each industry to join. And then you've got about 30 or 40 people coming together once a week or once a fortnight for breakfast, and then there's a chance to network, and you get to know each other a little bit better. And the whole idea is to ultimately refer people to each other. That's sort of the setup, but it's a good way to get out there and get people to know you. And another way is obviously just be active in selling yourself. And I know that sounds horrible, but just walk into GP surgeries, like this ex-student did. Like she 2-3 times and she hit bingo. It was great. Set yourself up, send them a letter. Said, look, I've just set up my practice. I wouldn't mind working from your practice if you've got an opportunity. But and that gets more into business coaching, so I won't go too deep into that. And really, the networking thing is massively important. Just get out there. People have to know that you are out there. So write articles. Send them to a local rag. Could you please publish this? Maybe advertise a little bit. Or send articles to a free magazine or something. Maybe sometimes they'll include your article if you are willing to pay for an ad. So that's exposure, that can work for you. So there's plenty of opportunities there. But you definitely have to take them all. Networking is a biggie, especially if you're local. If you want to work in your local area, that's the way to go. And build up relationships with people. So if you're going to get clients that might have physical issues, build up a relationship with a couple of GPs that you could refer them to. If you know people with strong mental health issues that you're going to work in that, build up some relationships with psychologists and clinical psychologists that you can refer people to for assessment. If you're going to get people who, I don't know, have employment issues, build up some relationship with employment service providers in the local area. You never know what happens. And it just looks really good if you've got a solid referral database of people in your little Rolodex, or your virtual Rolodex, if you will. where you can just say, oh, look, you got weight problems or you got nutrition problems. Well, here's the address of a really good naturopath or a nutritionist, and that works because they start to refer people to you too. That's generally how it works. So that's a good way to get started anyway. And look, is there more to it? Obviously, but get your basics right, and then do some business coaching. But definitely be courageous enough to go and get out of your comfort zone and start doing stuff, because otherwise there's a fair chance that you'll drown in the crowd of other small-time and small business counselors. There's plenty out there. What I found exceptionally useful was writing articles in my case, which I posted online. So there's plenty of what they call article banks. E-zine articles is a really good one, ezinearticles.com. You can create a free account and just start writing, start uploading them. They do really good search engine optimization. So whatever keywords you put in, that's what people will look for, and that's what they get found for. And you can always put a link to your own website in there, so people start to find your website. And that's a good way to go as well. So there's loads of opportunities there, but that gets more into the nitty-gritty, which I might do at some stage. So who actually thinks of setting up their own business, or out of you four, who thinks that they would like to preferably work for someone or an organisation? What about you, Lindy? I'll start from the top. What's your idea?
I'm working on organisation.
Hang on, Mel. I'll start up top. Okay. You want to? Yeah, you're good. So, Lindy.
Someone's actually offered me a job as a psychologist in her clinic.
Mm-hmm.
She said, go and get your degree and you've got a job here. So I actually started out by studying, just doing the TPP program.
Brilliant.
But because I'd been a stay-at-home mum for 20 years,
mm-hmm.
that was actually really stressful to go from that to that. So it just didn't feel right for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I pulled out, and that's when I started with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really awesome offer that she's given me, and I want to follow that up.
Yeah.
But I don't think I want to be a psychologist. I want to be a counsellor. I just want to help people. So I think if she'd still have me to start off there would be amazing. But I think
Absolutely.
my end goal is actually just to have my own business at home.
Yep.
And work for myself. That's actually what I want.
Yep, sweet.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But see, my little girl's still 12, so my husband's working. So the next few years, I want to focus on her.
Yeah.
And then after that, I can go and work as much as I like. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
That's how I feel anyway.
Yep. Yeah, working from home is a cool idea. Just don't become a house mouse, though, a business house mouse where, you expect clients to come to you and don't go out to actually find them. So that's where online activities or just, a bit of social stuff can come in, just create community groups and spread yourself there. Definitely works. What I did for a long time, actually for a very long time, just because I enjoyed it, is kept a second job. I just kept a little part-time job on the side and paid all the bills. And whatever I was making with my counselling was like just extra. It was cool. Just beer money, as I called it, and it sort of worked that way. Yeah. So that worked. Yeah. Cool. All right. What about you, Nicole?
Sorry, I was just I was trying to deal with
what do you reckon your idea is going to be for a practice? Do you want to set it up as a business or as working for an organisation?
So I've actually been working with the Women's Support Centre over in Tumut, which is about 20 minutes away from us. I've done that on and off for the last couple of years. I've dealt with ABOs and court stuff and all that sort of thing. Suicide's a massive problem in the little town that I live in at the moment. So basically I would like to work with people with mental health. I'd like to work with people that have been either involved with suicide or know someone that's taken their life. So I have spoken to hospital, believe it or not, and they rent out rooms.
Yep.
But in our area, they're screaming out for counsellors. So basically that's where I'm heading. I'm actually heading to hopefully, first of all, get the diploma finished, which, as you know, is diploma finished, at working from the hospital, and also working with mental health.
Splendid. Yeah, cool stuff. Now you, Mel, you wanted to work for an organisation. Did I understand that correct?
Yeah, I want to do domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really. I don't really know if I want to do it from home
Mm-hmm.
or if I want to like separate my work life from home life.
Mm-hmm.
Because like Lindy, I've got little munchkins at home,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's hard to get like work and still be dealing with them. So, but that's what I want to focus on: domestic violence.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Oh, big area. Hey, it's massive. Unfortunately, but yeah, it's good for us though. Yeah. Well, you
I
did.
don't really have an area.
Don't mind. Who cares? I didn't have an area. No, I didn't have an area. No, I just started off.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I started off in just because I was working in that. When I started off in employment counselling, sort of career counselling, a little bit more than anything else, because that was the industry that I was working at that stage. But later on, I found, post-traumatic stress and depression, anxiety way more interesting. So I started to focus a bit more on that, and started to focus my marketing and article writing also more on that. So started to become a bit more known in that field, and that's something you can do. Yeah, that's something you can do with that one too. So I'll just start focusing on a particular type of counselling and just focus on it as long as you want. So that people start to know you as Lindy, the youth counsellor or whatever it is. Whatever you focus on.
Yeah.
Good question. Sorry, Debbie. I know you're next.
Yeah.
But with counselling from home, for instance, how do you go about doing that when you've got little kids? You've also got to be concerned about your children. So how do you do all that? How do you?
Good question.
Work?
It's you just you know what my simple Dutch answer is make it work. It's like, you just got to you just that one something like that could happen.
Yeah, it's like
well, no, it's either practical stuff, and I can just think off the cuff here, but practical stuff is in palm them off to your neighbour for an hour or two or whatever, or you got to make that work. If the plan is there, you'll make it work. But that can be tough. Yeah, that definitely can be tough. Yeah. Don't know. It really depends on how creative you are with creating space for yourself in that one. I've got my home office, and that works really well for me. On the other hand, not every home lends itself to do that. People come into my front door and turn right immediately, and that's my office. But I know from a friend of mine who has an office as well, but it's at the back of the house. So all his clients have to walk through his living room and kitchen, in order to get to the back of the house. No, that's not ideal. So when we bought our place, we looked for a house that has either separate access or easy access to a separate room where they don't come into a private space. So that was something we looked for when we were buying our place. And it's the same with setting up your own practice. If you know that you got to take kids into account, you might just slot a couple hours a day in where they're not there, or they're asleep, or they're at kindy, or they're whatever. And that's what would be your hours. It's a matter of just really scratching your head really hard and then nutting out a plan on that one. But again, if you got the intention, you'll make it work.
I was just going to say, you've got to also look at the fact too that you're bringing strangers into your home. They know where you live.
Yep.
I'm paranoid.
Yeah.
I've done that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't have that, so I see your point. I don't have that, so for me that's never been an issue. But I see your point though, and it really depends on the market that you work with as well. Obviously, if you work with DV people, or if you work with people in say probation and parole, interesting. If you work in that area, you might not want to give them your home address. So that's hey, look. On the other hand, I've done plenty of counselling sessions at people's homes. I would just go and become the roadie counsellor and just go visit them. Yeah, and that works.
That's a good idea.
Yep. A friend of mine, another friend of mine has done that. She's got a bachelor in counselling, but she started off her own bizzo and wanting to do family counselling, mainly families with kids. That was her specialty that she was really focused on. And she just became the I'll visit your home counsellor. So people in their own home environment, feeling comfortable and safe. and she would charge $10, as petrol money on top of her normal rate, which she set at 65 when she kicked off. So she charged $75 a session, and then within a range of about 25 kilometers, she would visit people, worked a treat.
Okay.
So again, there's all sorts of, and that becomes nitty-gritty stuff, which, first of all, you all have to finish your diploma. But once we get to the nitty-gritty stuff, that's the stuff that you want to start thinking about. It's like, how can I make this work? What's something that I can put in place that works for me, that takes care of my maybe anxieties or fears on getting people in my own home, or not like in my case, not wanting to have them to walk through my living room and having to clean up all the time and all that sort of stuff. And that's when you get to that point. That's you'll sort it out at some stage.
Thanks, Mark.
No worries. Debbie, you haven't spoken to you yet, but what's your plan?
That's okay. Well, I was going down like the track that you were talking about before, actually getting out there in amongst to some of the volunteer groups and that, and just getting a feel for what's out there. So I'm actually going back up to council. So get out, find out where the need is and where I actually feel like I'm going to fit best.
Oh, Townsville, you'll be busy, mate. It's like, oh, gosh.
Yeah, with youth up there at the moment,
Yeah, I know.
But and at the same time, I can sort of, pick up, a bit of a reference dialogue. It's just, list of who's what and what can go where, and get my name out there at the same time.
Absolutely.
And then if I decide to sort of get an office, I'll still also have that base to go on, and people will know me a bit then.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. The most important thing, and that's for when you want, actually it's an overall statement, but especially when you start your own business, don't listen to the naysayers. It's so easy to fall, and I've done it. Look, I'm sticking my hand up. I've done it by saying, you need this and this and this, and if you don't spend $10,000 a year on marketing, it'll never work, and blah blah blah. It's just all nonsense. It's putting your mind to something, and sure, it might go slow in the beginning, but in my case, it was full throttle from the day I got my diploma, because it's like I said, 15 to 20 clients a week, man. I was in one of the Kemmel Page offices where they would load me up on Friday, and I would have 8 sessions back to back with 5 minutes intervals each, and just go for it. You go like, wow, there's beauty, man. I came out there completely buzzing. It's like, it was cool. And I wasn't tired. It was like I had a shot of I had a shot of heroin. And at the end of the day, it was like I was feeling like complete high. And that was me. And am I lucky? Well, I don't know, maybe. But there was an opportunity, and I took it. And that's often when you start up your business. That's how I started off my life coaching business, though, because I did my life coaching training in 2004, and from 2005 I was in practice, and I started up slow. And because it was my sole source of income. Sorry, what was that?
What is life coaching? Sorry, I've never heard of it before.
Well, life coaching to me is the forward version of counselling. It's too simple a way of saying it. Counselling is often looking backwards. It's looking at people's problems and how they started and what caused it, and then maybe doing something about it in a sense. Life coaching is all about, it's like solution-focused therapy in a sense. Life coaching is more about, the past is the past. Let's see what you want from here on in, and let's see how we can make that work. Okay. So there's loads of overlap. If you talk about overlapping circles, they overlap about 80% in my opinion. But there is this technical difference between life coaching and counselling. That life coaching doesn't necessarily look at problems that much. It looks at, okay, where do you want to go? What from here? Regardless of your past, which is very solution focused in a sense. And then you get things as neurolinguistic programming and all that sort of stuff to come on top, which is fascinating. But that's how I started off my practice, just slow. I held a job as a bus driver, for 8 years, and I enjoyed it so much that I kept it actually when it wasn't even necessary anymore. But I drove for an airport shuttle company. It was like great work, and brought me in about $500 a week for a couple of days, and the rest I just made with my coaching practice until that started taking over, and then I cut my hours down a bit. But it was awesome, so that works really well. What I learned from my coach at some stage is if your income is dependent on your coaching business, really dependent, then it's tough, because then anxiety can start to kick in, and like, oh man, I'm not making enough. But if you make enough on the side to keep your business going, and then it's great. You can just slowly build up and do what it is that you want to do. And that's how it worked and then I started developing relationships with people, and before I knew it, I was talking worldwide. with people, because I got in contact with this Canadian fella who was doing internet coaching, and he didn't want to do one-on-one sessions. He just wanted to do big stuff like groups and sell big expensive packages. But he needed someone to help him run the one-on-one sessions. Well, and guess who was available? Yours truly. So I started talking with people in Canada and America and I don't know, Malaysia, Singapore, or New Zealand, wherever they were. It was awesome. And he paid me in American dollars, which was even better. So but again, it's all about forming relationships. So I never ever listen to the naysayers in that sense. Just build your own stuff, and that's definitely for business. And it's not easy, but it's absolutely doable. It's very doable.
That's it. As you said, Mark, if you get the basics in there, like when I was out of work in Townsville, I come up with an idea of just starting doing little gardens and fairy things.
Yep.
Now, I done what you did. I started a Facebook page, went to print, and before I knew it, within months, I couldn't keep up with the stuff. And even though I've been down south for the last 4 months, I still get emails off people. And they say, because we remember your name and someone's told us about it.
Yep.
And that's just how it all spreads.
You know what? My very first sort of marketing exercise, and that worked an absolute treat. There was we had I don't know, you probably got them where you guys are as well, but some sort of natural health food store or whatever, one of those organic food stores, whatever. And there was an organic supermarket. And I placed an ad in one of their magazines and got talking with the marketing lady for that, for that supermarket. And she said, well, what do you want to do with it? I said, I just grow my practice, obviously. I said, do you guys ever offer free sessions to people? That's what I asked her. She said, no. Why so? I said, well, I could come in here once a week on a Saturday, say for an hour or so, between 10 and 11, and just offer free life coaching sessions to people, for 10 minutes, just a quick chat. And she said, oh, that's a good idea. That's really good marketing for us as well. So, and that's what they started to do. So they got a sandwich board out for me and started marketing me in their little magazine that Marc was going to be available, Saturday mornings from 10 to 11 for quick life coaching chats. Brilliant. It works a treat. So I did that for about a year and a half. Now, a lot of it never led to anything. Many people came for the freebie. And that's cool. That was all right. For me, it was just an exposure bit. So people start to recognize your face. You give them a brochure. You become a bit of a fixture there. So people start to recognize you. And some wanted my business card. And guess what happened when I started to place ads a bit more frequently in their little magazine? It was like, oh, that's Marc from Saturday. It's like, oh, and that's how you start to create traction. That you got to create traction in that sense. And it was always for free, so I gave up, an hour of my Saturday, but it was well worth it to go there. And I always got a freebie coffee or whatever. I just had a good time there, and it worked really well. And at some stage, I didn't need it anymore.
How do you go, like working for yourself and having a supervisor?
You just find one, Lindy.
Find one. How do you find one? Do you just
by going to the ACA website, which is your absolute Bible for pretty much everything as a counsellor. Okay. If you go to the ACA, theaca.net, theaca.net, that's the Australian. Are you online now or not?
Yeah, I'm just writing it all down a bit of paper.
Okay, yeah, that's right. So let me have a look. .net.au, sorry. It's theaca.net.au. And they have a little box down the bottom right that says, find a supervisor.
Oh, okay.
And that's how you go about it.
Okay, cool.
So you just find one. If you become a member of the ACA, you'll get their magazine anyway, Counselling Australia. Not sure if I can reach that. Yes, I can. This thing. Counselling Australia. Oh, you can't see that, eh? Am I still sharing my screen, or can you see me on the side? Okay, yeah, cool. So that's their quarterly mag. And that has a list in the back of all the supervisors that are out there countrywide. And you just find them. You pick one in your local area or one that you like by name or whatever. Mine is literally 3 minutes from my place, and then he does group supervision sessions for $40 for 2 hours. You beauty. So awesome. I go in every month for 2 hours and rack up my 10 hours minimum for the ACA like that. It's just 5 times going, and I've got my 10 hours up. It's like, sweet. And that's only costing me $200, where other supervisors can charge you an hourly rate of up to $100. It's like, well, if you got to do 10 hours, it's like $1,000. Well, stingy Dutchman in me goes like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So I'll do it the other way. So it's again, that's nitty gritty stuff, Lindy. It's really easy to find all that stuff when you start to register with ACA, and that's where you can find the insurance stuff and supervision stuff and professional development stuff. Yeah, a good one to do professional development is Mental Health Academy. mentalhealthacademy.com.au. They offer an annual subscription, and they have all sorts of courses online. It's all online. All sorts of online courses there that are completely accredited by the ACA, and they're just worth hours. So you might do a motivational interviewing for alcohol addiction course that's listed as 3 hours. Then you can write 6 hours professional development for the ACA because it counts as 2 if you do it through the Mental Health Academy. So you'll have to do your 25 hours of professional development for the ACA per year to stay registered. Then you just start adding them up, and they talk to each other. So you just do your stuff on Mental Health Academy, and it automatically lists on your professional development list at the ACA website. So it's easy. It costs you anywhere between $250 and $350 a year. So there are some investments that you'll have to do, but they're all tax deductible. Hey, remember that. So they'll all become tax deductions for you. So ACA and the Mental Health Academy are great tools to kick you off, to start off, have the basics in order, and get all the things right that need to be set right before you kick off and practice, and then you should be fine. So that's go ahead. Someone wanted to say, it was you, Nikki, probably. So that's when you run a business. Now for jobs, okay, that's where I'll be honest. Most likely you'll need to step up a bit and might have to start looking for bachelor courses or beyond. That's just the way it is, especially if you look on Seek or if you look on Indeed or if you look on My Career or something. The jobs that you'll see advertised for counsellors, and there are plenty, so that's a good thing, will often ask for up to 5 years experience minimum and maybe a diploma or minimum bachelor or even worse, minimum psychology degree or whatever it is. So you run a risk of actually doing that. On the other hand, that's something I've trained my job seekers in when I was still working in employment services. What's actually out there on Seek and on My Career and Indeed is only 20% of the actual available jobs, roughly. So there is a massive hidden job market, as they call it. It's like an iceberg. What you see online and what you see advertised is only about 20% of the actual jobs available. How do you find the other ones? How do you find the other ones? By being proactive. Send out your resume, walk in, knock on doors, talk to people. Just talk to people. Don't be afraid of actually handing in your resume somewhere at a community organization. So look, I'd really like to work with you. Can I leave my stuff, or can I talk to someone from HR or a manager? And you have to say, well, not really, but we'll take your resume. So, okay, great, thanks. Can I come back next week and actually see if the manager already has seen my resume? Just keep knocking. Be proactive. And then you'll find that there's actually so many jobs out there that will never, ever get advertised because they just don't need to, because they go for people that are proactive. They just fill it in. And I've seen that in my partner, Simone. She works for Ozcare, which is a big Queensland community and aged care organisation. And that's how she got her first job as a support worker. She just walked in, said, look, I don't know what to do. We're new in Australia. I've got experience in healthcare and aged care in Holland, but nothing recent. And she just said, well, we haven't got anything for you yet. So, okay, is it good if I come back in 6 weeks or something? I said, sure. And she just did that twice. And then they said, oh, that's her again. And guess what? They had an opening for a support worker, and that's how she kicked off 10 years ago. And she still works there, but now she's got a fairly high-profile role at head office. Just climb through the ranks. Just drop your resume off. And that's how counsellors get jobs as well. Another ex-student of mine graduated in June. She lives in South Australia, somewhere Mount Gambier way. Anyway, doesn't matter. She walked into a local, I think it was a domestic violence community organisation. And on our mental health support, it doesn't matter, mental health anyway, something to do with mental health, and I think with DV. And they said, you know what? We were going to advertise for an assistant to the manager here. Would you like to interview for that position? She goes like, heck yeah. And she did and got the job straight out of Evoca, straight, within 2 weeks. And it's not a counselling role yet, but she observes very closely to what this manager does and has many chats with the actual counsellors there, and they're training her up internally now. So within no time flat, she'll be a mental health support worker. Yeah, it's like she's great value, and I know that, and she knew that. But that's she didn't even have to apply; she just walked in. Yeah. So, and again, don't listen to the naysayers. And I've had so many that say, "Oh, diploma's not good enough." No, look, honestly, yeah, some doors are shut, but there are plenty that are open. But you just have to find them. You have to go hunt them. And if you only rely on Seek or Indeed, yeah, you stand a chance of getting fairly disappointed. Yeah, but that's only 20% of the market. So don't hunt that one. Hunt the other stuff. Keep looking at Seek because you never know. But definitely open yourself up to just dropping resumes in, making really specific resumes for specific roles with specific cover letters for very specific positions, and hand them in. Don't do a generic, I'm looking for any type work. No, that won't work. You want to make it as specific as possible. So I'm looking in the field of DV because it's a passion of mine because of previous experience myself or with other people in my family or whatever. I'm committed to making a difference to la-di-da-di-da. Just make it specific. And then people go like, oh, cool, that's someone who's passionate about this stuff. Let's get her in, or him. So you got to be specific about that one. And volunteering is a great one. Hey, we've got a fairly local PCYC, and they're always looking for people who want to volunteer. Especially diploma-trained counsellors. There's plenty of them.
Whereabouts is that?
PCYC, you got to look them up. The PCYC where we are is in Deception Bay, Redcliffe area.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's about half an hour from here. And they're always looking for people. And always looking for trainees, always looking for people that are willing to spend some time. And as long as you're in, that's always been my philosophy. As long as you're in, now you can listen. Now you get your ear to the ground, you know what's happening on the inside, and you can go for internal applications as well. But if you're not in, it's hard to get in. But it's still possible. You gotta apply yourself. So, what was the other one? What did I say? Organizations, business, volunteering, or something else. Higher education. That's another one. Obviously, climb up. I'm doing my master's at the moment. I know that will open a couple of doors up for me again. I know there'll still be a couple of doors that stay shut. All the psychologists. But on the other hand, I'm absolutely convinced that me with my now 14 years experience, nearly 14, and a master's degree in counselling, I'll be trumping every graduate psychologist. It's just the only thing, if it's ever Medicare based, then we still bite the dust, unfortunately. But there's talks about that slowly but surely to get more and more counselling funded. So for instance, telehealth services, rural telehealth services now actually attract funding for counsellors as well. So you can get Medicare rebates if you work for telehealth in rural areas. So telephone counselling for people who live in rural areas and can't access normal services, just by driving there because it's just too long. So there's all sorts of openings that are happening. And then the ACA, Philip Armstrong, who's the boss of ACA, so to speak, he's absolutely pounding the pavement to get more recognition for counsellors, because we are a good industry in our own right. And I think a well-trained counsellor is worth more than an average trained psychologist. It's just the way it is. Psychologists are people who diagnose and treat. It's a sign. Nothing against them, but they're scientists. They do measurements and apply tools and apply all sorts of measuring scales to stuff. That's not what we do. We work with people. We're in the trenches, man.
That's why I think I'm lucky to have been offered that. But it's not really what I want to do.
No, there's a bit of it's a bit of a hobby horse for me at the moment. And I like to ride, get on my broomstick and ride it. It's like I find that there's a massive discrepancy between counsellors and psychologists in terms of public recognition. And it's okay. It doesn't really matter, but it's not an honest one, because they advertise for counselling positions, and then you have to be a psychologist who go like, hello, if you want a psychologist, advertise for a psychologist, not for a counsellor, because it's a different industry, and the work that a psychologist does is entirely different. It's overlaps, but in the strictest sense, it's an entirely different job. They assess people for diagnostics, for diagnosis and treatment. We don't do that. I always see sort of the psychologists are sort of generals, sitting out the big lines on the battlefield, and we're actually infantry. We're just in there. We're just doing the stuff, man. That's how I see it. And,
it's like doctors and midwives.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a good that's a good comparison, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
A good midwife is worth more than some doctors are. Yeah. But do they get the recognition? Probably not.
No, which is awful.
No. Yeah. But anyway, again, don't let that stop you. It's do a CBT, cognitive restructuring on yourself with that one. Hey, because it's really easy to fall in the trap of like, oh, there's no work out there, and oh, it's too hard, and I've tried it so many times, and blah blah blah. Oh, and everyone tells me that there's no jobs. Like, yeah. All these generalizing statements. Don't fall for them. Don't fall for them.
Yeah.
So is that helpful? Because I'm looking at it, and we've already nearly gone for an hour, which was not my intention, but I thought I'll just blurt it all out. Any questions on this?
No,
this bachelor degree, like how do we go about doing that? Like, how long does it take to do? Like, can we do it over the internet? Do we go to uni? Pay? Like,
depends on the unit that uni that you pick, obviously. So, bachelor normally is 3 years. Bachelor of Counselling generally is 3 years full time. And part time equivalent, well, however long you want to take it. Depending on the uni, and that really depends on the uni, you'll get up to 6 or 8 credits, for units finished in your diploma. So you can pretty much cross 1 year off, in a sense. I know there were a couple of Queensland-based ones. I can't remember the names, so I can look the list up. They would automatically, scratch a whole year off, pretty much. If you've done your diploma, forget year one. You become a year 2 student. Oh, ACAP. ACAP is one. So the Australian College of Applied Psychology. They do that. They make you an immediate second year student if you can show a diploma. So that's a good one. And depending on the uni, it's either classroom based, it's blended, and some do actually do full time online and part time online courses. And I think Monash is one. There is another one.
Sydney University.
Which one, Debbie?
Western Sydney.
Oh,
Western
there you go.
Sydney University.
Cool. All right. Yeah.
They do it online. It doesn't matter where in Australia you are, they'll actually organise for you to do your face-to-face exams wherever you are.
Yep, sweet. Okay, cool. And I know that AIPC actually has a Bachelor of Counselling as well. It's pretty much the bulk of it is online, and you just have to go in for a couple of weekends or something where you do all your practicals, something like that. So AIPC is a good offering. The downside of AIPC is that it's actually not a downside at all. No, they're good. No, there is a downside. Yeah, there is one downside with AIPC, is that they're not a recognised uni as such. So you will pay full fees. Even though you might get your student loan for that, so your HECS. So you can get your student loan where you'll pay the full unit price, as in $2,500 a unit. Whereas if you go to a registered uni, like a public uni, you'll get Commonwealth support, which cuts the price of the unit down by about 2/3. So, because I'm doing my masters, for instance, same goes for the masters through the University of the Sunshine Coast. I pay $780 a unit instead of $2,500 a unit. So that could be a massive difference depending on which one you go for. Well, it depends on the debt that you rack up. That's pretty much what it works out to be. Yeah. So keep an eye on that one. But it'll be like Mel. It's two more years probably. Full time, and depending on how fast you want to go, it's up to 4 years extra if you want to go half time or whatever. Just up to you.
Okay.
but combine it with some practice, eh? So if you can combine it with volunteer work and whatever, then you can start to rack up all your practice hours already, and then you come out with a bachelor with 2 years practical experience. Hey, you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. That's the lines I was thinking about going along, even if it's part-time work here and there, to be able to combine the two.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it doesn't matter, hey. It's like, well, you can't lie, but you can definitely say you got 2 years experience, even if you've only done 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week. I mean, they never ask about that. Just tell them that you got 2 years experience. Like, oh, great. And if push comes to shove and they ask you, was it a full-time job or a part-time job? Well, tell the truth, obviously. But I've always claimed that I was, I've had experience, even though it was a couple of hours a week. Like, I've got experience. There's no lie in that. Yeah, so make sure you sell yourself properly. So as a good one, just make sure you check out that Job Outlook website, because that's a good one, just to get a couple of ideas for trends. That's always good to have a look at. And definitely, we're in a growing industry. Again, it's a good thing, it's a bad thing. Bad in general, but really good for us. Further study options, there are aplenty. For jobs, check out Seek and Career and Indeed and all that sort of stuff for My Career. But be very mindful that 80% of the jobs are not on there, so you'll have to hunt for them. And for all the other stuff, basically just check the ACA website and check the Mental Health Academy, for starting out. And there's plenty of information on there as well in terms of insurance and what have you, all the stuff that you need to get yourself sorted. All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Any final remarks or any
really
last things? Yep. Cool. Alrighty. I'll probably do another one at some stage on more specifics for business stuff, even though we discussed it, but just a bit of business coaching, which I actually enjoy. So we'll focus on that one at some stage. But this for this one, I think I've covered the basics, so we should be right. Okay.
Mark,
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Speak soon. Keep me Mark, and keep sending in that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.